What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, Reckless Rexx Ruger. That, of course, if you couldn't tell by the enormous, sorry, I don't want to hurt his feelings too badly, enormous chompers, is, of course, the Freddie Mercury puppet, my sidekick, always watching my back. Offers very little to the show, but, folks, he is a puppet. More of a figurehead. But again, this is Pod Scum. This is the place where the cool kids come to chop it up with your boy, Rexx Ruger, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. It's the holidays, folks. Search your heart. Search your feelings. You know it to be true just by looking at, come on. It's rockstar genetics, folks. The quaff like Roth, which I might add probably needs a little bit of looking at because I do enjoy admiring the view. Whew. Man, sometimes it is a heavy cross to bear looking this damn good, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. But when I do need a little help, and it's not often, this is mostly au naturel. What you see is what you get. But when I do need to dive in for a little help, right here, folks, you can get this in your life too. It won't make this kind of impact, mind you. You can't look this good. We've already ruled that out. Impossible. But you can step up your game levels. And as we've mentioned numerous times on this podcast, life is really about levels. And you won't be able to reach rock star offspring level. That's probably off the table. There is only one son of glam, the front man for the band, adored by millions of fans, the peanut butter to your jam. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wop, bop, loo, bop, wop, bam, bam, shazam, hot damn. Whew. Feeling good, as we just established. As always, looking good. Another great episode, man. I'm excited about this one, man. Very excited. Of course, you know I don't edit anything. So here you see me checking my messages, checking the progress on my scheduled guest. That won't be edited out, folks. You know me. Don't edit anything. Cannot be bothered. And will not be bothered. Life is happening, and I'm recording it for posterity's sake. Lest we ever forget how important posterity is, man. It's going to prove someday, recorded, that we were all here and we were all making these hiccups. There were fuck ups along the way. Nothing's going to be polished. Nothing's going to be, overly edited and all this. No. We get in here, we get down to the brass tacks, we keep it raw, we keep it unfiltered, we just jump right the fuck in. And if there's mistakes, and there have been many, glitches, audio/video issues, people have to go out and come back in, microphone problems, it all stays in. And I hope you guys can appreciate that because I think it is important. We've gotten used to in this world with technology having everything to perfection. And not that we don't want things to run smooth or sound good or look good, but I mean, come on. I mean, is it really rock and roll? Is it really punk rock to have it completely, polished and repolished and buffed and polished some more? No. Life is full of errors and hurdles and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going on very philosophical right here, and I don't know why. Suddenly I've gone off on this, and I'm going to stop myself. What I am going to do is go into promotional mode, because you got to do that nowadays. You got to be everywhere and have a profile. So follow and like Pod Scum on Facebook. That's where you'll get the updates. You'll find out when new episodes have come out and who is on said episodes, other than me, which is really all you need for entertainment purposes. But hey, the guests help. So that being said, also make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on this channel to stay tapped in. If you're here now, you're at the right place. This is where you really want to be for the meat and potatoes. This is where the episodes are, man. So if you're enjoying the episodes, and I certainly would encourage you to go back and look at the time of this recording, and it is December 10th here in upstate New York, cold, wintry, as to be expected. But at the time of this recording, my original point was there are 251 or 52 episodes out currently right now that I would encourage you to go back. I apologize for the early ones. I didn't have the best equipment. They were very crude. They were very grainy. but the episodes and the conversations, that didn't change. They were fucking awesome, with some incredibly talented, gifted people, man, that I've had the honor of being able to chat with. So go back, dig into the old episodes. If you got time off, you're sitting around, it's the holidays, go back in and check out some of those great conversations, man. Sometimes it's great just to listen to free-form, long conversations, especially with interesting, talented people. I mean, it's a real blessing. I'm fortunate to be able to do this and be able to have these conversations. So dig in. Also on the channel, if you're a fan of the knuckle game and you like your pugilism, boxing, that is, pop over and also check out the other playlist, which is 160 episodes of Off the Couch Boxing, which your boy also fucking co-hosted with my son, Frankie the Flamethrower. Go check out Off the Couch Boxing. As I said, 160 episodes with legendary people from the fight game, current fighters, ex-fighters, trainers, referees, people associated with the amazing and historic sport of boxing, my personal favorite. So go over there, dig into some of those episodes. Really incredible stuff over there, man. And while we wait for my guest to get in here, let me also, because I am on the topic of guests, a big thank you. It's a season of gratitude right now. It's the holiday season. So I want to extend my deepest gratitude to all the people here as this year winds down to an end. Come on here. I can't do this without them. So a huge thank you to them. My guest is here. So I'm going to dive in, man. Let's get down to it. I'm excited for this one, man. Another son of a legend. And that's always exciting. Dane, how are you?
Hey, Rexx, how's it going?
Listen, man, I really appreciate you doing this. It's really an honor getting the chance to meet you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to meet you, as they say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And first, I want to jump into, because I'm slightly delusional. People that know my show know that my calling card is claiming to be the son of Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. And I don't think I'm all that far off, man. I mean, appearance-wise. But you are the actual bona fide son of what I consider like a legend, though. So I mean, I kind of got to acquiesce a little bit and step back, because you actually are the son of a rock legend.
Well, legend. I don't know if that's the correct word, but some people would probably agree with that, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's all I know. I don't really know what it's like to be a son of anyone else. So, if that makes sense.
But I'm curious, and again, if people don't know what we're talking about, Dane Campbell and obviously your father, Phil Campbell, longtime guitar player for, the metal band, I think, that paved the way for so many bands, Motörhead, Phil Campbell. What was it like growing up, though, man? Because I have this crazy idea, man, that like Mickey D and Lemmy were kind of in a way like almost like surrogate uncles. Would I be wrong in that?
To be honest, yes.
Yes.
Well, we saw them, on the average year, maybe once or twice a year at shows, or if we, went out to a festival. They all lived in different countries. So my dad has always lived in Wales, in the UK. Mickey always lived in Sweden, and Lemmy lived in California for the majority of the time of the band. So it was not as if they used to come over Christmas and for birthdays and things like that.
Ouchie on his knee.
Yeah. I remember once when I was little, like the tour bus showed up in our street to pick my dad up to go on the tour, and like Lemmy did come into the house for a cup of tea and a cigarette.
Yeah.
Once. That's like the only time that ever happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, they're still really cool people. I wouldn't say I class them as family, because it's not quite like that, but they were always very, very kind and welcoming to us whenever we were at shows and gigs and stuff like that. Definitely.
Now, I'm curious, because there have been musical artists, obviously, in the past that have had family members, in them, brothers. You're working with two of your brothers and your father. What's the dynamic like when you're creating music, with family members? What's the creative process like when Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons are going to sit down and start to create music? Is it collaborative? Does Dad kind of take the reins? Do you find the dynamic difficult? I mean, we're not talking like any Oasis Brothers type stuff here, right? Nobody's throwing punches or anything like that, or.
Luckily, it's never quite got to that stage. But yeah, it's no one really takes 100% charge of everything. It's very collaborative. It is mainly guitar-based music, so most of the riffs are either written by my dad or Todd, which is my brother.
Yeah.
It's more like they bring a riff to the table. Sometimes it's more of a developed song, or 3 riffs that we might gel together into separate parts, but we all just kind of jam it out. And I think the good thing about us all being family is that we can be honest with each other.
Yeah.
If someone really isn't feeling a particular section, we're not afraid to tell that person that maybe that riff isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll try it in a different song. But yeah, it's never really, we don't really argue as such. I think sometimes it can be a bit disappointing, when you're told, especially if my dad comes up with a riff and his 3 sons say, "Dad, that riff sucks."
Yes.
Let's not use it. I guess that can be pretty sad, but it's nothing, not Oasis style Gallagher brother fighting. No.
And then what about touring though? Because obviously then you guys go out on tour, so you're spending a lot of time like with family or whatever. But like, does the dynamic work out good for everybody? Because I know touring is such a big part of the business now. Getting out on the road and touring, how does the itinerary work for everybody? Because I imagine you guys all must have families, or you're all busy yourself. Is it tough to work out a proper schedule and like know how long to go out for, how long to be away from home and your families and your your duties back home?
That is a good question. And quite recently, it was myself that decided that we had a 5-week tour booked, supporting a band called Accept, which you probably know.
Incredible.
Yeah, they're an amazing band. And it was 5 weeks, and I was like, I don't think I can commit to do the full 5 weeks, guys. But I understand that they're good shows, and the band should do them. Do you mind if we get a drummer to do half of the shows for me, so I'm only away from home for like 2.5 weeks instead of 5 weeks? Because I've got a wife and a young son who's he would have been like 16 months old.
That's tough. Yeah,
it's a long, and at that age I do find it difficult. But yeah, so we made this decision to agree to do the tour on the basis that we get another drummer, and everyone seemed quite fine with that. It meant they did an extra rehearsal with the other guy before leaving for the tour, which wasn't too much effort, I don't think, for them. But yeah, we do work around each other as much as possible, but we do try and keep the calendar open as much as possible too. Like I know my brother has had to miss some of his friends' weddings so we can play a gig and do a tour and things like that. It's kind of one of those commitments you make when you're a professional musician, is that, very, very special occasions we try and work around. Like, but we miss our partner's birthdays and things like that. And it's just the way it is.
Kind of par for the course. Yeah.
Yeah. But, we're quite reasonable with it. You give and take and help the other guys out as much as possible. And like, I've requested not to miss my wife's 40th birthday and things like that, and hopefully
that's a good way to
work around that.
That's a good way to stay married.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe the single people out there might not quite get it, but
yeah. Well, I've been married for 26 years, so I certainly get it wholeheartedly, man. Words to live by, right? Happy wife, happy life.
Exactly.
and I imagine your father being an old school guy, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but because he's been doing this for so long, where does he stand on like the length of a project? And by that I mean, especially since COVID time, but the musical trends and the listening trends and the attention span of people seems to have changed quite a bit, where you don't see people always putting out LPs as much. You see a lot of singles, a lot of EPs. Do you guys as a band, or Phil or whoever makes that decision, do you guys have a definitive approach on that? Like obviously the last album, Kings of the Asylum, that's a full-length album.
Yeah, I think we're always kind of pretty old school, and most of our fans are maybe that kind of demographic age bracket. We do have younger fans as well, but generally even them, they listen to old school music. They want full albums. when we started this band, we did release a 5-track EP. It was like, that was more of an introduction to the band. It was just so we could get something out, some original music out there. Because prior to that, we were just doing covers, and we were gigging for 1 or 2 years before Lemmy died as a cover band, essentially. A little bit of fun, a bit of a side project for my dad. But I can't see us really going for that modern EP single only approach. I don't think our fans really want that either. I think they want to buy the 3 versions of the vinyl,
right,
and the CD with the bonus track, and
Sure.
they like all that. And as long as, unless they tell us that's not what they want, we're going to continue to do that.
And when you guys were growing up, because you, Todd, Tyler, you guys all play music, and forgive me for not knowing who the oldest one is, but did all you guys kind of dive into music at the same time, or did one of the brothers, kind of stumble across it first? Who was the first one to kind of become musical?
Well, Todd's the oldest brother, so Todd's 4 years older than me.
Okay.
And then I'm 4 years older than Tyler.
Okay.
So there's a four-year age gap between all of us. Todd naturally got into it first. He started playing guitar from a very young age. So, but I think pretty much by the time I was born, he was already dabbling in guitar.
Okay.
We had keyboard around the house. We had like one of those electronic drum pad, tabletop pad things.
Yep.
So I remember, my dad kind of saw that, and maybe I was more naturally suited to drumming. And then we did end up jamming together. That was pretty much our childhood. We weren't particularly massive sporty guys. We did go outside and have friends and play. Well, you call it soccer, we call it football.
Yeah.
And things like that. But we used to just play music with each other, and that's how we got into it, really.
And so you were drawn to the drums, like, despite the fact that Phil, your father, is a guitar player, though, man. Was the drums your first choice? Is that what you were kind of drawn to first? Did you dabble with any other instruments?
Well, I was also given the guitar and keyboards and things like that, but it was either myself finding the drums more interesting, or that my dad saw me having a bit more of a natural talent on that instrument.
Yeah.
I was too young to really remember. Because by the time I was, I think, 6 years old, I was playing, I'd go up. He used to play in a cover band as well while he was in Motörhead. So back in Wales, he'd have the odd gig on a weekend down the local pub, and I'd go up and play a song on the drums with the band when I was 6. So, like, I can kind of remember that, but I can't really remember why I chose the drums. But I'm glad I did.
That's probably pretty easy going up and playing a gig when you're 6 in a way, though, because a lot of people would probably think, wow, you're just a kid up there. It must be intimidating. But it's probably less intimidating because you really don't know enough to even be intimidated at that age.
Yeah, you didn't really care. I thought it was fun.
Care.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, I think I probably get more nervous now.
Sure. Yeah.
And
your dad has played with some great drummers too. Obviously, obviously, you mentioned Mickey D. Was he? I know Phil came into Motörhead around like the mid '80s. Were those any of the years that he overlapped with Filthy Phil at all? Either?
Yeah. So I think there was 2 little periods with Filthy Phil. There was a couple of years, or 1 year, with Pete Gill.
Oh, okay. Yep, that's right.
Filthy Phil came back in for an album or 2. Like, don't quote me on this. Some of the fans will probably know better than me.
Yeah.
And then ultimately then Mickey joined. But yeah, they were all big influences, especially Mickey, because I guess that's what I was exposed to the most, and who I watched live the most, and listened to all the records and the live albums. But yeah, there is a photo of me like sitting behind Filthy Phil's drum kit at a sound check somewhere when I was a little kid. So I was always drawn to the drums, I think. Unfortunately, I was probably too young enough to really have proper memories of speaking to Filthy Phil, but he's a crazy guy, and
very,
but it was cool that I'm sure he would have been well behaved around me.
But I think though, man, that like obviously Motörhead in general, and of course a lot of it probably comes from the reputation of Lemmy, but they were seen as a pretty wild group of guys, though. You know what I mean? So the fact that your father did, damn near 30 years, and is still here.
I know.
He speaks volumes.
He's cleaned. He's cleaned up a lot. He doesn't drink anymore.
Yeah,
He kind of quit all that a while ago. Probably because all the stuff and the alcohol, and probably did damage his body a little bit, So
well, and what kind of effect did that have? Because obviously he did make music alongside of Lemmy, who I think everybody would probably put on their Mount Rushmore of, especially like if you're into heavier music, he's certainly on that Mount Rushmore of hard rock / heavy metal, rock gods. I mean, he's certainly up there, man. He's in the conversation for sure. What was that time like? Because it wasn't that long ago. You were obviously an adult, so you could probably remember this. How did your father process that, man? Like losing Lemmy? Obviously, this is somebody he's created with. He's shared, time on the road with, traveled with, been in some, intimate situations,
Oh, absolutely. And, I don't want to speak for him. He's probably spoken about it a lot in other interviews. But yeah, it hit us all hard. So it must have hit him incredibly hard. And it was essentially his best friend,
Right.
Yeah, they'd probably go a few weeks without chatting every now and again, and
Sure.
a few months without gigging and stuff like that because of the distance between where they live. But ultimately, it was his best friend for over 30 years. They knew he was sick, but I don't think anyone expected it to happen, so soon when it did happen.
Did you think maybe your father wouldn't continue to play music, after Lemmy's death? Like, was there any point in time where maybe he thought, career over, I'm not going to do any more musical projects?
I don't know. I think we'd already started the band with us. And I could tell he enjoyed it. I know he enjoys playing with us on stage, and I think he feels quite proud of us. But yeah, I think he certainly wanted a little bit of a break from it, and it certainly, I don't want to speak for him, but it definitely took quite a few years of his life to kind of maybe start feeling normal again. He probably doesn't feel normal yet. He probably still doesn't feel normal. Right. But I guess he's accepted it more now and has gotten used to it, and I think he feels fortunate to still be able to do what we do, even though it is on a smaller level, smaller crowds, a lot less luxury with regards to the transport and stuff like that. But we still do a lot better than many other bands, so we appreciate that. And like me and my brothers, we've all, before starting this band, we played all the toilet circuits up and down the UK and toured sleeping on. Yeah, we've done it all before, so we appreciate where we are in relation to where we were before. So we've done all that stuff. So I think it's kind of a weird balance where we've gone up a few levels. My dad's come down a few levels, right? And we're grateful to still be doing it. And as long as he still wants to do it, like we will. I don't think we'll ever get to the. We're never gonna force him to keep touring. Right. If he wants to give up.
And I'm glad you brought that point up, though, because, obviously as we do get older, we start to maybe put a stop date on things or think, geez, I don't want to do this past a certain date. First of all, I don't know if Phil is at that point or whatever, but, should Phil, want to step away from the music business, do the Bastard Sons still continue on? Is this a project that would go on and still have legs even if Pops was not involved in it?
It's impossible for me to say. I think a lot of people would perhaps lose interest if that was to happen. But I do think, some of the, the genuine fans that come and see us, they travel so far, they like us for who we are. Sure. Maybe they would, be a percentage of people that would still follow us. Whether, we still play the same songs, I don't know. I don't really know. It's a good question though. And it's something to seriously think about in the future.
Well, because aside from Phil, though, it is a great band. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, obviously, Phil is a big part of the driving force. He's got the name from the Motörhead days or whatever. You know what I mean? There's recognition there, man. But, make no mistake, though, man. You guys are all great players. It is a great band. Joel is an amazing singer. I mean, it really is an incredible band. So I wouldn't want people just to think, like, like this is just like a Phil Campbell project. This is certainly a fully realized band, and you guys all really have amazing chops.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think like I said, we've all got the experience. We've all put the work in. We play quite well together. A lot of people that maybe see us for the first time, they go, "Oh, you're so fucking tight, man."
Yeah,
and things like that. And it's like, well, we've been playing together I'm 38 years old. Todd's 42. So we've been playing together for over 30 years, essentially.
Sure.
So we're going to gel quite well together as musicians. And that comes across, I think, versus, maybe a new band, a group of friends, they just met a few years ago. They've started rehearsing together. They're not going to be as tight as us because there isn't that, connection there yet.
And maybe I would be remiss in assuming this or whatever, but what music got its hooks in you first? The obvious answer could be, you grew up, you grew up as the son of Phil Campbell. I mean, Motörhead and this kind of music had to be your influence. But was there a specific album or an artist or a song that really got its hooks in you and really got you passionate, lit the fire for you, to want music in your life?
Well, yeah, I think it was just kind of part of our life anyway. Like there was obviously Motörhead had a massive part of everything, and every time there was a new album coming out, my dad would bring home a cassette with like the demos or the unmastered versions of the album, and he'd be proud of it, and he'd show it to us and be like, yeah. And then when it was finally released, we get the CDs delivered, and we'd all listen to those albums, and I guess that like 90s. Early 2000s era I'm more familiar with, and a lot of the fans probably dislike that era the most, but it is what it is. That's what we grew up listening to. But then I think when we became teenagers, we started to develop our own musical tastes as a spin-off from that. We had our own friends that were also into music that you take influence from, and then our tastes went a bit. I guess we were following trends with people our age, and there was all this new metal stuff that came out, and
natural.
I got into that. I'm not afraid to admit that I was into all that stuff. I used to listen to Blink 182 and things like that. I used to love all that. And I still do. I still got a place in my heart for that. And I grew up.
Well, it's kind of nice those walls have come down, because I've talked about it on the podcast before. There used to be a time, man, like when I was a teenager, and I'm 51 years old, but there would be a time when, if you were representing yourself as a metalhead and wearing the shirts and wearing the patch on your jacket, and somebody found out that you weren't really doing that behind closed doors, you in my day, you'd be labeled the dreaded poser, and you'd be ostracized. I mean, you'd almost feel like a pariah. Now it's nice that people can actually kind of say, geez, I have an eclectic taste. I could put on Motörhead, but then I could go listen to a Blink 182 album or something. I mean, like it's nice those walls have come down.
Yeah, I think that's for the best, really. It's kind of silly just saying I only listen to heavy metal, and that's great if you're into. That's fine, but you shouldn't be limited to that. If you hear something on the radio and it does something to your body or your brain, and you go, "Oh, I quite actually like the sound of that," or
you should embrace that. Yeah,
if you want to, embrace it. If it feels good to you, naturally, explore it. If and this kinds of music that I know I'm not into, like. I've said this many times before, like electronic dance music and stuff like that. It doesn't do anything to me that I cannot get into it. I cannot feel anything from it, any form of enjoyment. And I kind of know that's not my bag. But I know people that love that stuff. And that's part of their lifestyle, is going to these clubs and doing all that stuff. And it makes them feel amazing. And so
we're not going to see Dane in a rave anytime soon.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. It's definitely not my bag. I like seeing musicians play instruments.
Me too. Yeah,
I like seeing them play live. I don't really like watching people mime. I know that's unfortunately becoming it's becoming part of the rock world now, where there's like backing tracks and backing vocals and even guitars on backing tracks. Like, I'm not into that. I don't mind holding my hands up. I know there's lots of bands doing that because it makes them sound better live.
Yeah.
But I'd rather hear some guy sing a back-in vocal out of tune and it be live than it be a note perfect recording.
Yeah. I've asked that question on here many a time, man. And usually true musicians would rather go and pay their money and see some hiccups. I'd rather see it warts and all, even if it's going to be a little sloppy, because rock and roll kind of is loose and sloppy. And when I've heard when I've heard people praise Motörhead, that's usually what they praised, is that it wasn't polished and over polished and everything. There was like a looseness, you know what I mean? It was certainly heavy, but there were elements of punk rock in there where it was kind of loose and fast and gnarly, and it wasn't necessarily, I think with the advent of so much technology, we've gotten used to everything being polished to perfection, and people don't want to, people don't want to open up their minds. And, like when you listen to live albums in the 60s and 70s, rock albums, they would leave those hiccups in if somebody hit a wrong note or something, and they laugh it off and shrug it off, but it would stay in there though.
No, exactly. And I think that's what's cool about like more old school rock and roll. And I'd like to say most old school artists and bands still do that. I know there are some, or I've heard rumors that they might not, but like it's more the modern bands, the younger bands that are doing all this backing track stuff. And then it's probably because they were used to listening to perfect music.
Yeah.
So anything that isn't perfect doesn't sound right to them. So it's finding that like, I think we're one of these bands where we kind of blend the old school with the more modern sound, but we're a rock and roll band. Everything, if you come and see us live, everything is 100% live. There's nothing apart from the intro music that's on a track. And that's it.
It's also tougher to get away with now because people are pulling out their phones and they're going home and putting people on blast on YouTube, and people are starting to spot this stuff. Oh geez, it didn't look like he was really playing his instrument. I don't know if he was really singing or whatever. So now everyone's going home and playing like armchair music critic now. You know what I mean? So it's tough to get away with stuff because people are scrutinizing what you're doing up there too.
Well, yeah, and like I've seen some like YouTube guys going into extreme lengths. I think it was the Eagles, and there was some vocals on some of the tracks, and some guy like when he deep dived into the sound waves of the vocals on this song.
Dissecting
and said like it's too similar. Every night is too similar to the previous night for it to be live. Apparently it's like scientifically impossible for someone to sing that similarly. I don't think that's the word. And things like that. So like it is now. So like I think bands like that, they're making millions of dollars. They're of an age where maybe they don't have the vocal range they used to, but they've written all these great songs. I guess there's an argument for it there, for it to not sound like absolute shit.
Right.
But for me, like I actually went to see the Eagles on that tour. I paid over £100.
I'm sure
for the ticket. Like being a musician myself, I don't want to be paying that money to watch guys mime. Really?
Yeah. It doesn't feel great. I mean, and you make a good point. You are laying a lot of money out now to go see big acts. You know what I mean? So like, at the very least, if it's not going to be authentic, I do think there should be full disclosure. Then just tell the fans, hey, look, this may not all be live, but we want to give you the best possible show. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we're going to do whatever we can here. Because like, I think when you go see a band like Kiss, like it's kind of implied, okay, these guys have never claimed to be the best musicians, but we know we're going to get Gene Simmons' bloody tongue, and we're going to get pyro, and we're going to get fireworks, and we're here for the whole spectacle,
Yeah, and I think full disclosure, like you said, even if it's just on the ticket or when you purchase a ticket, something in the small print that just says
it's a performance.
We can't get, we can't guarantee that every note of this show will be 100% live, something like that.
Yeah. And then you kind of absolve yourself. Like, at least you can say, hey, we've been forthcoming here,
Yeah. But now, it's too much like so-and-so live in concert. It's like, well, and then if it's not live, well, you've said it's live.
Yeah.
So,
Now,
yeah.
now, I've had a lot of drummers on here, obviously, and I'm curious because you've been doing this for a long time. Not to impugn anybody else's role in the band, because it's tough getting up on stage and playing live, and especially playing with the amount of vigor that it takes to play this kind of music. But the drummer has a very physical job back there. Have you had to make any kind of tweaks? Like, I know I've talked to drummers, they get little aches and pains. They got to change the height of the stool or the layout of the drums or whatever. Have you experienced any of that?
I've had lots of injuries in the past. Yeah, I've still got a little bit of a dicky shoulder, I call it, which has never really been fixed. No one's ever really diagnosed it properly, but every now and again it aggravates me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think over the years, my setup and I guess style of playing has been more suited to longevity.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, I still like to think I put a performance in, but I don't do any exaggerated movements with my arms anymore, or I try not to. I try and have everything reachable.
Yeah.
I know, like, back in the day, it was really cool to have your big China cymbals up there.
Yeah.
And things like that. And there's still loads of drummers that do that now. But I think because I had those scares quite early on in my life, I've kind of, I want to be doing this for as long as possible.
Sure.
I do think about that with my setup and everything. And, it's all about warming up as well. I think that's really important. A lot of drummers, until they have that injury, they don't think about it.
Yeah,
and I think
that's true.
that opened my eyes. And sometimes it's just depending on what level you're at and how much time zone, how long the changeover is for the previous band, and whether you have to set your own shit up or not. And luckily, in most of my situations, I get like a 30-minute changeover. Sometimes I have to go and like line check the kit, and that's because I choose to do that because I want to make sure everything is right. But back when I was doing the smaller gigs in my old band, it'd be like a 15-minute changeover between the band before you, and then you'd have to swap the cymbals and swap the snare drum. There's no time. There's no time to warm up, really. Right. And things like that. So that it was back then when I was getting more injuries because I was a lot more hands-on. And then you finish playing, your 45-minute set, and then you've got to take everything off, and you're lifting things, and it's just. It's that side of things important as well, like unloading the truck, unloading the van. You've got to be really careful and know how to lift things safely, and be realistic with what you're comfortable with doing.
I have to ask because that's the part of me that's the healthcare worker, because my day job is as a nurse. So I'm always intrigued by how people's bodies hold up, because I don't think a lot of people go to concerts and they really realize. I think they see the drummer drumming, man, but there's a certain physicality. There's a certain physicality, even just I've had a couple back surgeries, even just having a guitar around you and having that extra weight and playing it with vigor and putting on a show for people. It's a very physically demanding job. I think people look at musicians as like, oh, they're having a ball up there, and that's barely work, but it is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the neck is, because I kind of rock out when I'm playing. My neck gets very tense, and I occasionally try and get a massage done on it, and I've got a massage gun thing that if it tenses up too much on tour, I can kind of just do it myself and just I don't know. It probably would be beneficial to get it looked at more often, and maybe before a tour, straight after the tour and stuff like that. But yeah, it can take its toll, and your lower back, depending on how you sit. I sit quite high, which I've discovered works for me. Yeah. I know a lot of drummers sit a lot lower, and I don't know how they do it.
No, I'm starting to hear from drummers now, man, that they do. If they tweak anything, it's usually sitting higher and having things more at a reach. As you said, being down and having to overextend is probably difficult.
Yeah, and it's physics at the end of the day. The kind of more movement you have to do, you probably you need more energy to do that is one thing, but it's more wear and tear on the joints. And there's a lot of wear and tear on the joints striking something anyway with a stick. Yeah, every time you're hitting something, the shock that's going up up your
There's
arm.
a reverb. Sure. Yeah,
No,
yeah. You're kind of getting like some rebound, like and are you involved in? You mentioned previous bands. Are you somebody that likes to stay busy in multiple projects, or is the Bastard Sons, the main project? Because I'll talk to guys on here sometimes that are dabbling in like 4 or 5 different bands, and I think, my God, I bitch and moan about my one job. I don't know where these guys find the hours.
It's very hard. In the past, I've done maybe 3 or 4 bands at the same time when I was a lot younger. Now, the Bastard Sons is the kind of only band, and I think our schedule is so busy that I just don't think it would be fair to start another project with someone else that maybe wanted to be busy, because I can't make that commitment.
Right.
I'd love to get back doing covers and playing small like pubs and stuff just to earn some extra money on the side. And I enjoy playing drums, so if I could do that, but it's difficult because a lot of those kind of shows you need to be booked up months in advance.
Right.
So with the Bastard Sons, it's kind of like we pretty much say yes to anything that we can say yes to.
Yeah.
So I think realistically, I'd probably have to wait until we get a lot quieter to kind of start something else like that up. And I would like to play something that's softer, so it's not just rock music, because I think I haven't done enough of that. Most of my career of being a drummer has been playing rock music, and like I like other stuff too. And I feel like I could give a lot more to music that might be a little bit on the softer side as well. It's a
like,
different
it sounds
style.
like you've got something definitive on your mind. Like, what would be a genre that you would explore? Like, I have guys on here that play extreme metal music, but yet they like to play jazz, or they like to do this, or they like to do that. What would be another genre that you would like to explore that would be on a different spectrum than metal?
Yeah, I suppose there are a few that I would be interested in doing. Like, I've always kind of liked like more traditional blues, and kind of got into more of the country style thing.
Yeah.
Which hasn't really been big in the UK until recently.
Right.
But the more I've heard of it, I'm like, oh, I kind of like this. And then it's more, the indie rock side of things, where it's still rock music, but it's not all full in your face. There's a lot more dynamics going on.
Yeah.
And I said this in an interview the other day. It'd be nice to play a closed hi-hat every now and again, because all our songs like
big, thunderous.
It's all big sounds, heavy, lots of cymbals and big hi-hats and crashing ride cymbal. Like that is my style of playing when I play rock music.
Right.
But I kind of would like the idea of playing something more chilled. Jazz, I'm not a jazz player. I would need to study it for many years to kind of get to that level, to be able to perform to what I'd consider good enough.
Right.
But I do like listening to it every now and again, depending on how crazy it is. But yeah, that kind of stuff,
But that's probably nothing that you could probably even do like with like I don't know, like where your brother's mindsets are with music. But like Phil, Pops really seems like a rocker through and through.
Yes,
but then I have seen the Lemmy movie though, and they weren't doing this in concert, but I remember them in one shot of the Lemmy movie where they were kind of rocking out to some bluesy stuff, and they were kind of playing. And obviously, when you hear Lemmy talk in interviews, he always gave praise, to the guys that came way before him. Huge Little Richard fan. He's been documented saying that many times. Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis. So he goes back to a lot of that rockabilly type, early rock and roll. So I imagine, man, like your dad being best friends with him, maybe I'm wrong. Is Phil just a metal guy through and through, or has he thought about exploring other avenues?
Well, I would definitely say he isn't a metal guy. I think that's one thing. He isn't a metal guy. It has to be a blues. It has to be something blues based for my dad to really get into it. He does like a lot of softer stuff. He grew up listening to like Doobie Brothers and things like that. Sure. So it's still good musicianship, but like more song based, not necessarily heavy stuff. But I imagine, it was when he was a teenager and it was all this British new wave of heavy metal. That was the cool thing to listen to. That was probably how he got into. I think he was in a metal band before Motörhead called Persian Risk. I think they were technically classed as heavy metal, but it's moved on since then. And I know he grew up listening to Hendrix, so it is more blues stuff.
Yeah.
as opposed to heavy metal. And his playing really shows that. I don't think he's a metal guitar player. He plays very loud.
Yeah.
But he's basically plays blues and riffs, but very loudly.
Now, forgive me for not knowing this, but are the Bastard Sons on a label?
Yeah, Nuclear Blast.
Okay, that's right. That's right. I thought you guys were. And so obviously having your dad having done this for so long, you know, I mean, he probably knows a lot of the ins and outs in you know, the nature of the business. I mean, I'm sure he's you know, you can't be doing it for that long and not learn a thing or two. And you know, you hear about bad record deals and this and that, and people live and they learn and stuff or whatever. Has he passed on a lot of advice to you guys as far as like, you know, not just teaching you how to play music or the musician side of it, whatever, but more like the business side of it, the side that the artist never really wants to think about, but unfortunately it's there.
Yeah, to some degree, because I think they've been involved in business decisions over the years, some not been so great, some of them have been very good. I don't know how much of a say he would have had on, you know, some of those decisions, but yeah, of course. The industry has just changed a lot since then. So, like, I studied a lot of this in university. I did like a popular music degree where there was elements of the music business that we had to study and stuff like that. So, I was quite knowledgeable with how record deals work and like contracts and what to look out for and things like that. But they've just changed so much since the olden days. There's not a lot of money up front anymore. With a band at our level, people might think that is, but there's not a lot of money up front. There's not a lot of records being sold. It's all about playing live and merchandise. That's where we get most of our income. So the record deal for us is the distribution that is important, and I think that's what's great about you know, a worldwide label like Nuclear Blast. Is that distribution that they can kind of just make it happen pretty easily. Some of the smaller labels, you know, you might get a bit more of a personalized service, but they might not quite have the distribution that they would have. Like I've always liked the idea of being a self-released band, or at least experimenting by doing that. But
it's the do it yourself.
DIY. Like I've done that in the past with other bands. You know, you need to put the money up front to pay for everything. But it's the distribution that would suffer then as well. Like you might make more every record you sell, you make a lot more money per record, but then you need people to know about that record. So it's a fine balance, and I think where we are at the moment is working well for us. And we've released 3 albums with Nuclear Blast, so fingers crossed they want to do another one soon.
And now I imagine, again, because your dad is so old school that you know, I don't know how much he embraces this concept, but obviously and unfortunately, I mean, fortunate for me because I get to do these kind of interviews or whatever, but you know, musicians, bands, projects nowadays, you have to almost seem like there's some type of social media presence. You know what I mean? A lot of it seems like it's dictated on not even the product that you're putting out, but how visible you are, how hot, you know, how elevated your profile is, how out there you are or whatever. You know, do you guys embrace that side of the business? Obviously, you're on there doing an interview with me, so you're not opposed to social media and being on it or whatever, man. But as a band collectively, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it seems like everybody nowadays is doing the Facebook thing. Oh, we have an Instagram. Oh, the band's got a Bandcamp page. Oh, you know, we do this, we do that. Where do you guys stand on that?
Like, we know it's required, and we know it's definitely beneficial to kind of do these things. And we try our best. That's all I can say. We try our best. Like we are on most of the relevant platforms for our demographic. Like I, as an experiment, I even set up a TikTok page a few months ago just to see if we, because everyone tells me, oh yeah, TikTok's is the easiest one to grow on. But I was like, I don't think it's going to work for our fan base, our demographic. So I put a few videos up on there just to see who discovered them. And we didn't see a lot of movement on there. It still exists if anyone wants to follow us, but I'm not going to be
I
putting
think
much on
TikTok
there.
is easy, man, because the videos don't go longer than a certain duration. So
Yeah.
it's good for speaking to my point earlier about the dwindling attention span. You know what I mean? Like people might be able to sit there and watch like, like a 60-second clip of what you guys do. But is that really encapsulating like what you guys are though? You know what I mean? I think that's kind of like a lazy comparison to say, oh, okay, now I understand like the Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons because I saw a 30-second TikTok video,
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I know there's probably some rock bands on there doing some cool stuff. And I know there's lots of musicians on there like showing off their skills and playing covers and guitar solos. And in the drum world is massive on TikTok. All the drummers, they do all this twirly
tutorials.
Tutorials. Yeah. But like there's a massive place for that kind of stuff. But like just a rock band playing songs, I just don't think that's eye-catching enough for someone random to discover us on TikTok. So we do okay on Facebook. That's our main platform. We are on Instagram. We do have a Twitter/X account. And my dad actually has his own Twitter account. That's the only social media that my dad does. It's just
I know.
funny.
It's so funny because you just don't think of the Motörhead guys as like is like sitting down and like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, I can't see Phil saying I'm gonna go tweet now.
Well, it's funny because that's the only one he does, and I think it's because he's had it since he was new. He's kind of always been on it. He's not interested in joining any of the other ones, but he does get into it, and he follows things he wants to follow, and he gets sucked into all the the algorithms that nobody's into. But that's actually him on there, like tweeting. If anyone does follow him, it's not like some social media manager guy that I know. A lot of other artists get people to run their social media accounts for them, but that's him on there. I know my brother has access to it for like promoting the band stuff, but most of the stuff is him on there. So he follows all his politics and all that shit. And,
the good thing is that there's usually somebody in bands, and I know this from doing the podcast. There's sometimes there's people in the band who specialize in the business stuff, or people that specialize in the promotional stuff. You know what I mean? There might be 5 guys in a band, but maybe 2 are like, we'll take the reins with any podcast or interviews, or kind of be the mouthpiece for the band. And then you might get somebody who's got a good head for lining up the shows or doing the books or stuff like that. So it does help. It kind of does help to defer those jobs probably to different people in the band.
Yeah, and that's actually exactly what we've tried to do. We try and limit anything that my dad has to do. He will do some interviews, but he tends to like only want to do like the bigger publications, which is fair enough. He doesn't do too many of the smaller ones. So like we're happy to do those. I'll do as many as I possibly can, because I also do what you do. I've got a podcast as well. I don't know if you knew that.
Shout it out. What's it called?
Yeah, so my podcast is called Drum for the Song.
Okay.
So I interview drummers. I have taken a bit of a break from it recently since I had a child, but I'm going to restart it next year. So I've had loads of cool drummers on there, big names, some less big names, but we nerd out and talk about drums and other things in the industry and careers and stuff like that. But so I quite like doing interviews like this. I also try my best to organize our accounts and things like that, all the financial stuff. Tyler, my brother's also been getting involved in that recently because I've taken on too much stuff with my other job. I also work as a real estate agent.
Okay.
I'm a new dad, so I'm like very busy at the moment.
Oh, I know. I mean, I've got 3 grown children, but I also have 6 grandkids. So, and me and my wife are 51, but we're very active in the grandkids' lives. It seems like there's always some combination of some of them here. You know what I mean? So it's almost like being parents all over again in some respect, because we are so hands-on.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's tough. But
and they're all young. You know, I mean, all the grandkids. We have 6 of them, but they're all like 10 and under. So they're all like little. You know.
Yeah, that's very demanding, and
it's a handful.
So I get what that is, and so Todd is the music producer. So he records, or at least recorded the last 2 albums. So he kind of spends a lot of time doing that. And that saves us a lot of money paying for studios and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Joel does quite a lot of our artwork and t-shirt designs and when we, posters and flyers and things like that. So he's kind of the specialist in that department.
He's a talented singer. How do you guys come across him? He's the only one in the band without the Campbell surname. So I mean, yeah, either you guys got to adopt him or find somebody in the family that can sing. But I say keep him. He's doing a great job. Where do you guys find him? Is he a friend of somebody previously?
No, it's a long story. So for anyone who's quite familiar with the band would probably know our first 2 albums is with a different singer called Neil Starr. So he was actually a friend of ours anyway. Okay. And he still is. He's still a friend of ours. I used to tour with his band back in the day. He was in a band with Todd. So we've known each other a long time, and he was an obvious choice when we were starting this cover band,
right?
With my dad. It got to a point, and that wasn't working out for various reasons. It was fairly mutual at the end of the day. So we actually announced that we were looking for a new singer and that we were taking audition tapes. Just basically send your audition tape to this email address. And we went through them over quite a few months. We narrowed it down to maybe 5. We invited Joel down to the studio. One of the reasons was because he lived closer than the other people.
Yeah.
But also, obviously, we thought his voice kind of suited our music maybe more than the other guys. There were some great singers that did audition, in fairness. Yeah. Some of them just didn't quite have the right tone for. We wanted a more grittier vocal sound,
Yeah.
But yeah, Joel seemed to be the right fit. He kind of looked like he was part of the band anyway. Like he didn't really have to do anything, change his image or anything like that to suit us. So it's worked out really well. I hope he's enjoying it. We've done a lot of big shows and some shitty shows with him, but generally the band is kind of on a slightly upward trajectory. I would like to say, we've played with Guns N' Roses, and we did 2 shows with Judas Priest this year, and big European festivals. So we're doing okay. Yeah.
That'll raise the profile. Shows like that for sure.
Yeah. I think it's really strange, and it's a little bit disappointing in some ways. Like, I'm really grateful for having those opportunities, but I think when you just do like a few random shows with these big bands, yes, you're being exposed to tens of hundreds of thousands of people overall. But I think you really need to do like a full tour with one of these big bands to really see a difference. And, you notice your followers go up and, more interaction online. I think when we've just done, like, I think Guns N' Roses, was it last year? We did 3 or 4 shows with them. And they were huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah.
But didn't really see a massive, increase in our fan base just from those shows. Because you've got to think percentage-wise, maybe 2% of that audience really got into us and maybe explored our music online. And
you're saying you need a little more time on the road, maybe to win people over.
Definitely, yeah. And I think it's the bands that do like. They'll do 30 dates with some big band. Then you notice how much they grow doing that. But yeah, hopefully, in the coming years, we'll have more opportunities like that. Next year, we've already confirmed a few shows in Europe with Judas Priest. So hopefully we can get a few more with those guys, because I think that audience works quite well.
Absolutely,
they've got like that hard rock / heavy metal crossover vibe going,
and they're an incredible band too. So like I think when you're opening a bill for them, you're certainly looked at, and deservedly so, with respect, because if Judas Priest is taking you out, man, that speaks volumes, because they're like a band that just has had the pedal to the metal their whole career. You look at their discography and there's no clunkers. Judas Priest is consistent. Oh,
exactly, and it's like it is so cool being like. We've never toured with them, but we've done the odd show with them, and it's just like it doesn't really get much better than that.
No,
in terms of like rock and metal music, like Guns N' Roses is more of a commercial sounding band, and their fan base is different.
Right,
they have a lot of people show up to those shows. Maybe not necessarily big rock and metal fans,
more casual. Yeah.
So I think that's where we struggled a little bit. kind of finding new fans playing with them. But hopefully the Judas Priest shows are going to be more hardcore rock and metal fans that are going to be more interested in what we do.
And so Kings of the Asylum came out in 2023. When would it be fair to say we should expect new music from you guys? Is it realistic to say there might be something in 2025?
Possibly. It would be, if it depends on our schedule. We have started writing
a
few demos, but that was at the start of this year. We've just been so busy that we haven't really put time aside to get back into the studio and write some ideas. But I think, we've got January next year completely free. I imagine we will get together and get some ideas down then. But it's quite a long process. So you're either going to be thinking end of 25 or early 26, I would have thought, by the time an album was ready to be released.
And I didn't thread in any of my subjective questions, but before I let you get out of here, I got to get at least one or two in here. If I were to take Dane Campbell, drop him on a desert island, and he can only take one album, what's the desert island album?
Oh fuck.
Yeah, I wasn't going to let you out of here without having to think a little hard and ponder something here.
Yeah, one album. Trying to think of something that you would know, but I guess that's not the point of the question.
No. Only something that you would be happy to be. Well, no one's going to be happy, I guess, to be stranded on a fucking desert island. And secondly, you're not going to be happy to only have one piece of goddamn music. But
the first one that comes to my brain, so I'll say that is an Australian band called Silverchair. Don't know if you know.
Man, what a great band. Great band. I love that you shouted them out. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So my favorite album, they've got some amazing albums, but my favorite one, again, I think it was because of the time it came out when I was like a teenager.
Yeah.
It's Diorama. I don't know how you pronounce that, but that's an incredible album.
Yeah. And those guys got famous really young too. Like they were like 17 when they burst on the scene.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, the whole story is crazy, and it's such a shame they didn't put out more records. And I think there's documentaries and podcasts that go into more detail about that if you're interested. But I think the singer and the guitar player and pianist, whatever, he plays all the instruments, lots of instruments. I think he had some issues, and she struggled.
Well, that's hard to wrestle with fame at that young of an age, and come out the other end and be completely well adjusted. Though that's difficult. That's a lot to put on anybody.
Exactly. And I think, like, looking back, you can see how it all happened. And, there's other artists, in the pop world that might have, you can see how that's happened to them or something similar has happened to them. But yeah, they were a great band. And, originally they came from that more of a grunge background, which was cool at the time. And like, I was into that. I'm part of that generation.
Oh, me too. I love that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Great bands.
But this album, they brought in all the orchestration. The songwriting was just like up, like 10 times better, more interesting. And I think, I just think it's such a variety of songs on that album. And I stick that on. I'll sing along and
what about from a fan standpoint, man? Best concert that you've ever seen, man, where you've been in the audience, man? Is there one that sticks out in your mind that really blew you away, a performance that has stayed with you? I mean, I'm sure you've been to a lot of great ones and seen a lot of great bands and gotten the chance to play with a lot of great bands, but...
Yeah, they like, in terms of, I guess, being blown away, it was probably the first time I saw Rammstein. And because of the show.
Yeah.
Like, when was it?
That gets back to talking about what we're talking about a show. You know what I mean? Yeah. Although I don't want to say those guys aren't playing, but they're giving you the playing and the whole experience, though.
Yeah, I'd like to think they're playing live. Mostly, I think so. But yeah, that was just like, whoa, this is like a totally different experience than just four guys playing guitars with some lights, which is what most bands do. But in terms of like enjoyment, like this is not heavy metal at all, but one of my favorite bands is Weezer, which
sure, yeah, everybody probably think Sweater Song, sure,
yeah, but like I know all the new stuff as well. I love that band, and again, I grew up listening to them. I love the melodies, I love the simplicity of it all, but it just made me feel good.
Yeah,
and the first time I saw them, they played live at a festival, and I'd been listening to them for 15 years at this point. And I finally got to see them live, and they played all these hits and they were so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Fairly simple stage show, but it was just the songs, and I'm singing along every note. I probably had a few beers.
That's the best.
But that was just like pure joy.
Yeah.
And I don't always get that at every gig I go to, but I think it's just because that band have a special place in my heart as well. But I'm sorry for all the heavy metal guys out there.
That's all right. No one's going to pull your metal card. That's all right. No one has the authority to. I think we're all guilty, man. Even those kids way back in the day that would make fun of people for not liking metal, they had their dirty little secrets too, man. And now everything's out in the open now. Now we can freely admit that we like this and we like that. You know what I mean? And the world's a better place. I think now it's more viewed as cooler now to have an eclectic taste. It's almost like if you do have a singular focus and only into one genre, people look at you more as closed-minded. It's not so great anymore. You know what I mean? It is better to have the eclectic taste. Now, if people want to find out about what's going on with you guys, we talked about the social media stuff. Where's the best place to keep up with Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons?
Yeah, I would say Facebook. If you're on Facebook, just search Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons. There's also a Facebook group that you can join. So we've obviously got the main page, and then there's a group for all the fans to kind of, you can be a bit more interactive on there. Instagram it's just the initials of the band. Probably the best place, but we've got a website, it's philcampbell.net. That's probably the best place to go. You can get merchandise on there and stuff like that as well. Tour dates are always on there, any upcoming tour dates. And then if you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram, Dane_drums. Twitter, I don't really use it, but Dane_drums on there. And
then you've got your own YouTube channel for the podcast as well?
Yeah, so Drum for the Songs. If you search for that on YouTube, you've got video versions of all the interviews, but I'm also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that stuff. So you can find me pretty easily on there.
Okay. Listen, man, I really appreciate you doing this, man. And I'm trying to get you out of here by noon, man. And I really enjoyed this, man. I'm glad I got to spend an hour with you, man. It was a lot of fun, man. I'm glad we're in touch now, man. Keep in touch, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again soon.
Yeah, let me know. And, when we get that new record coming out, maybe we could do it again.
Absolutely.
And I'll have some more stories to tell and some more new, I don't know. But, thanks for being so cool, man. It's been nice to meet you like this. And
it was a lot of fun. Yeah. And I'm glad you dressed up, man. You probably wore the nicest sweater that anyone's ever worn on one of these interviews, man. I mean, for God's sake, man. Yeah.
The story behind this, I was doing my other job this afternoon, where we film property videos.
Okay.
And because it's Christmas time, I was like, well, I'm going to wear a Christmas sweater, and we're gonna put Christmas music on in the background, and just to feel festive. Yeah. And I only got home 2 hours ago, and I thought, well, I'm not going to change just to do an interview.
No, absolutely, man. I mean, hey, man, you're appearing in a podcast, man. It is an audio and video one, man. So you presented yourself quite nicely, man. Rock stars clean up nicely.
I try my best, yeah.
Thank you, Dane. Really, it was a pleasure meeting you, man. I'm glad we're connected now, man, and we'll definitely do this again for sure, man. And best of luck with everything, and happy holidays to you and the family.
Yeah, happy holidays indeed, and thanks for having me, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. I appreciate you, man. Thanks. Good talking to you.
Cheers.
Later, brother.
Bye-bye.
There he goes, folks. Dane Campbell, who is the guy behind the drum kit, keeping the fucking beat for the mighty Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons. And Phil Campbell, if you're a rock and metal fan, and you probably are if you tune into this podcast, you will know the legendary Phil Campbell from his nearly 30 years in a little influential metal band called Motörhead. And if you don't know them, I encourage you right now to just go exit right off of my page and go, find something else to do. Find another podcast, please. I don't know if I want to know you or have you in my life if you don't know who Motörhead is. I'm not sure. If you're friends with me on Facebook, maybe it's time you exit stage right. Motörhead's so influential, man. And I think every hard rock and metal band out there would have them. If you were asked them to list their influences, I think you'd hear Motörhead's name pretty early in the conversation, probably within the first 3 or 4 names that people are going to shoot out there. And Phil Campbell has these amazing sons, 3 of them that he now is in a band with. Dane is the drummer, Tyler and Todd, and they have an amazing singer, Joel. And you should really check them out, man, especially if you like Motörhead. They're certainly loose, heavy, gnarly, gritty. You're going to get that elements of that when Phil Campbell is your guitar player after spending 1984 to 2015 playing alongside the legendary Lemmy in Motörhead. So certainly elements of that, man. But they're doing their own thing, though. Make no mistake, this is not a Motörhead clone or you know, anything that is a mirror image of Motörhead. Elements, yes, but certainly they're doing their own thing. Joel is an amazing musician, man, and so are all the Campbell boys. Incredible band. I would encourage you to go check them out. Their last album was 2023's Kings of the Asylum, which is a fucking banger. I can't say it enough, man. And they've got a few other albums out too, so go dive into the discography. Go to philcampbell.net, as he said. Find them on the social medias. Check them out. Keep tabs on what they're doing, man. An amazing fucking band, man. And truly, thank you so much to Dane Campbell, man. The guy pounding the skins for Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons. I implore you, go check them out. I did a lot of preambling before the episode, so I'll keep it short and sweet here and remind you guys to like and follow PodScum on Facebook. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell on this channel to stay tapped in. And also go check out, if you're interested in hearing the drummer's perspective, check out Dane's podcast, which he has episodes up of, and it sounds like he's going to start firing it back up again. So the details were in there. You have to pull your cursor back and fucking find it, because you know, I've done so much weed and so many edibles that I've already forgotten. But it was something to do with drumming and talking to drummers. That much I do remember. But the particulars are in the episode, man. I'm sure you can just go check out Dane Campbell's podcast, man, and you know, show some love and support to his project as well, man. There's enough time in the day, folks. We can give everybody some love and check out shit that we're interested in, man. So that being said, man, let me end this thing by again thanking Dane Campbell for coming on here, man. Check out Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons, and always remember to take it easy and keep it sleazy.